Hello and welcome everyone. We are back here at the Space Bar. We got two great guests. We have Seth and Amanda coming to us live. We're happy to be live, having a great conversation here. So it's great to have both of you here as CEOs of companies. Our topic today, we're talking about career paths for a digital age and about how things have just changed a lot in terms of what people expect out of careers and how they move forward. But before we get into our discussion today, I do want to stop and do a check-in question to make sure you both are certified humans. Your question today is, tell me a time when you feel older than you actually are. So you guys are both pretty young for CEOs. So give me a time, whether it's like you get done running or something like that you feel like, oh man, I'm like 50, 60 or 20 years older than I actually am. Seth, let's start with you.
It's necessarily not how I physically feel. It's when I'm in front of a younger audience. And I'll go back and speak to my alma mater at Purdue University, and I'll speak to the football team. And I was a former college football player. And they'll show some of my highlights, and they start to make fun of me about how old the equipment looks or how old my helmet and face mask looked at that time. And so you know you're old when you're starting to be on some of those playback clips that look like grainy old vintage film. So that's when I feel old, is when they're 20 years younger than me and I have no clue about the game of football anymore. So
that's great. You're one of those receivers that wore the crop top with your abs exposed all the time, right?
No, I didn't have those abs of steel.
Okay.
No, definitely not.
Oh, that's a requirement. You have to have abs of steel to wear those, because.
No, definitely not.
Cool, thanks. All right, Amanda, you're up.
Okay, well, I'm streaming live from a swim meet actually, where I'm a meet ref, and so I feel really old even today, just because everybody here is 18 and under. But the thing I noticed even 2 days ago is I grunt when I bend down. I've got that old person grunt. And I had this moment where we were laughing yesterday in the room, that Geico commercial where, you become your parents. And I was going to sit down and I went, oh, like this. And they all looked at me and I was like, oh my God, I'm 90. But I've been on my feet all day and I just kind of sat down and went, oh, and they're like, oh my God, you're grunting like a 90-year-old. I was like, yes.
Very good. I saw one meme recently. Somebody was talking about when somebody said, yeah, this was 40 years ago. And 40 years ago to me is always 1960. That's permanently is where that is. And when somebody says, no, it's 1980, 1981. It's no, that's not right. You're doing your math wrong or something's wrong there. Exactly. Well, cool. Well, let's jump into this. So career paths. You guys both. Amanda runs more of a newer startup, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
That's in there. How many people do you have working with you now? A handful.
We have 8 people. Yeah, 8 people who work with us. And then if I add in our development team, it could be hundreds for all I know. Paul, our developer Paul through Project Sparrow. He's so connected that I'm like, hey, we need this, and he's like, okay, I know Paul or Jane or somebody can do this, and I'm like, okay.
It's good. And Seth, your company itself, how many full-time employees do you have?
We have around 160 full-time employees, and then we have, 3,000 W-2s that are contracted weekly. But the team that we manage day to day is the 160.
Yeah. So Seth, let me start with you. What has been your exposure over the last, let's just say 10 years in terms of career paths? Do you feel it seems like for the most time, people are at an individual job for a shorter amount of time, or they're more eager to jump around and do different things. Are you seeing that as well from where you are?
Yeah, we've seen that. I think over the last 10 years, you think early 2010, 11, 12, that time period, we're coming out of the recession. You started to hear about millennials job hopping and the gig economy and some of that macro shift of, hey, there's flexibility. You have this digital kind of wave of tech coming through, and you started to see that more and more. I'd say over the last 5 years, it's very relevant. It's very prevalent in our workforce. I'd say 80% of our staff is millennial based or younger. And so we've had, 2, 3, 1 year stints where people are kind of coming in for a pit stop, doing what they want to do, kind of building up their career track and then moving on. And it's tough to manage through that, but we definitely have seen it firsthand.
What's been your, what's your emotion attached to that? Does it make you feel sad, or does it make you feel like excited, or what do you get?
I've had two different emotions. Early on in my career, I was really salty and frustrated because you put a lot of time and energy into a lot of different people, and you build relationships, and you feel like they're on this ascent up this grand mountain with you, and it's the only mountain you guys are going to ever climb together, and you expect them to be there for the next 20 years. And that's not the case. And everyone's on, in my opinion, on a different climb, and they've got different expectations, and their journey may be for a year, or it may be for 3 to 5 years, but they've got different agendas and goals. And so what I've come to realize is, listen, it's important that we encourage and develop. And while they're here, let's think about what they need and try to build them to be a better player. And when they leave, we hope that they leave our family, as a better teammate than they started before. And that's, I think, having realistic expectations with that mindset has really helped me over the last few years with, hey, they're alumni of the company. Let's let them, test drive Morales Group. And if it doesn't work out, that's okay. We'll move on.
Yeah. Amanda, what about you? Your company is less than a year old right now. Mm-hmm. When you brought people into this, did you say, hey, this is going to be your job for the next 40 years? Or was that your mindset? Or was this like, hey, we're going to ride this as long as it can and then see what happens next?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely wasn't a mindset of, coming on for the next 40 years. I mean, I think it's just a general employment, mindset that most people aren't staying with an employer for more than, say, 3 or 4 years now. And there's nothing good or bad about it. I mean, it just depends on your situation. I think for us, we will be a year old on April 22nd, so we're not too far, but we're still 11 months old. And I think the big thing for us was just identifying the people who started out with us that weren't as dedicated or, looking to really move down the path of building this into a business. And, quite honestly, bootstrapping a startup during the height of a pandemic, focus on the height of a pandemic. There's, you got to be able to take some risk to do that. And just identifying the people who just don't have that risk tolerance. And, also identifying, are they people that you want to keep on in the long term? So, for us, that was a little bit of our hard growing pains in the beginning. But our core team that's still with us today are people who believe in our mission and what we're doing and what we're bringing to the market, and want to do it. And, nobody's planning on buying a private island anywhere soon, but we're all in this together. And that's really how we all look at it. Like, we all have a desire, especially with what we're focused on, to, help individuals within the pandemic. I'm not thinking that people are going to be here for 20 years. If I'm lucky, they'll be here for 2 to 3 and then move on, and we'll bring the next group in that has, other ideas and ways to continue to grow Vital Circle.
And you're also at an interesting place because you're trying to grow a company to a certain level, which is often a different time. Like you said, like those startup days, you need a certain kind of risk tolerance for that. For those really scaling up days, you need a different type of risk tolerance. And then for the long haul, more, I guess, kind of more Seth is now. This is a family business that Seth runs, that's been there for a long time, that goes through. You kind of need a different person to take that long view aspect. So have you kind of realized or started to feel like you're making a transition from one type of employee to another?
Yeah, we're definitely, the other thing that's really been really handy for us is, obviously, with everybody working from home, people have a little bit more flexibility to do some consulting work. So when you need somebody focused with a very, specific task, like, design work, or be able to just, help you with writing or reviewing the website and the text, it's easy to find somebody who maybe has a full-time job, but you still get the benefits of their skills on a part-time basis because everybody's working in this, virtual environment. So that's been a huge benefit for us. I just think it's really having really honest conversations with people who are on the team and knowing, what their goals are, because I could, if Neil, you worked on our team and you said, hey, I want to be here for the long haul. I want to be here till we sell this for X millions of dollars in, 5 years, 3 years, whatever it is. Great. let's create an employment situation. Let's create a situation where you can continue to grow as an individual, and expand your skill set, and also bring that back to the company itself. And then there's people who are like, hey, I can commit to being here for a year and a half, and then I want to move on because I don't want to, in a development, IT standpoint, a lot of times they don't want to be stuck in a role for a long time because they feel like it's stalemate, so they don't continue to learn. So it's almost like, it's great to have a development partner who has people to pull from at all times, because you could bring in those skills that are hot right now that, say 6 months from now, they want to get trained up on the next new thing.
Yeah. Seth, what about you? Like, do you have these conversations when you're bringing in like a key role? Do you talk about like, hey, this is the time limit, what I think that it's going to be? It's more like this is a 3-year type position, or how do you approach that?
I think what Amanda said was spot on about having, authentic, truthful conversations on the front end, and then trying to back into what they want with their goals. Yes, we do that. I think what we've learned is the hard way. You don't have those conversations on the front end, and then, you have churn, and you don't want that. I think if you can reverse engineer back to what they want and figure out what those goals are, if it's a 12-month pit stop so they can learn recruiting, so they can go into this talent acquisition role that's with a bigger, higher level company that pays more, great. Let's have that conversation on the front end, and then let's like kind of back into what are those kind of stair step goals to get you there so you can graduate on. So what we've done that I think has been really interesting is, you have your HR suite, which we have a team of 5 or 6 folks, but then we've created a new role where we've created this engagement and development leader who's really all about customizing these pathways. And so we're intently focused on how we customize pathways for all these folks that are considered a younger generation that are wanting to kind of move up quickly or move around and have different projects and opportunities. And so that's been really helpful with creating that role. So we're intently customizing pathways for talent to come in.
Yeah. Can you give us a little bit more detail about what those pathways look like?
Yeah. I mean, I think if you look at what we do from a recruiting standpoint, most of our talent is in that box. So you come in and you move up through these different levels of recruiting. But what Monique has done, she's our director of engagement and development. The development part is what she customized these pathways for. But she's done a really good job of working with the HR team and the operational group to, all right, what are the specific kind of badges or things that people need to complete to kind of rise up through these different levels? We have 3 levels of recruiting: level 1, level 2, and level 3. And so she helps customize these pathways for the new talent that come in. And so 1, we have a focused resource. 2, we have a plan. You get a passport. We're a very globally diverse company. So you get this passport, you get these stamps, and you kind of move around the board, kind of like Monopoly. And so we try to make it a tangible, you can kind of gamify it. So that's been really helpful. So there's development with that. And so I think gamifying it, having a focused resource, and then trying to be intentional with customized personal pathways has been helpful for us.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I love the fact that you gamified it. Like people love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if I can add to that, Neil, I mean, I used to do executive coaching. I guess I still do it. But it was part of my core consulting company before I started Vital Circle. And one of the biggest things that they, in a sense, instruct you or teach you when you're becoming, a coach, is that when you're speaking to individuals, and I think this is really true with employees as well, is within the first 5 to 10 minutes, they will tell you exactly what they want. So if you really, all the rest is just, extra stuff they're putting into the conversation. But if you really pay attention to that, so, it's like you said, it's building it backwards and understanding, like, if this is a person who only is looking for a job for, say, a year and a half, number 1, does that fit within the organization's goals and what we can do and what we can offer? So, even though it's a really great hire and it's somebody we really need on the team, we also need to look at the cost, benefit or loss benefit to the company. So, but going into those expectations, having those really clear conversations of, this is what we can offer to you, this is what we can offer to you and why, it really sets a great stage for having a really honest culture, and then also having a really honest conversation with the people you've employed.
Yeah. Yeah. I found even there were a few people on my team that I've had those kind of conversations with, where they came in and they said they wanted to start their own company sometime in the future. was like, that's great. Fantastic. Here are the skills you need to build to do that while you're with us. And here's the exposure you can get. You're going to have access to some of the brightest minds in the industry and people who have done this. Like, don't just sit there and do busy work, like have conversations with them, try to push that forward and see what you want to do. So, I mean, in the back of my mind, I know that, okay, this person's probably not going to stick around for a long time, but I'm also trying to equip them and give them those skills because they're going to get better at their job if they do that too. And then also it gives them those opportunities.
And I also think it's driving them to wanting to get something more than just a paycheck.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that's a little bit about how we've built our team. Like, if you're here just to get a paycheck every 2 weeks, like, I don't know if it's necessarily what I want on my team. Like, I want somebody who's, wants to get paid because we all want to get paid. That's not the point. The point is, I want somebody who believes in what we're doing and has ownership. So, if you spend $1 of the company's money, it feels like it's $1 coming out of your pocket.
Yeah. Let's talk about promotions, especially when we're in this digital age. If people are working from home or from distributed places, sometimes it's harder for leaders at your level to see who's doing a great job. You're almost totally reliant, it seems, on their managers to say something about it. And if they don't happen to speak up, you don't know who's doing a great job, who needs to move up to the next level. How are you making sure to find that next generation of leaders when it used to be you could kind of read where the energy was in the office and different types of things? What are you relying on to make sure that you are able to identify who those people are? Seth, let's start with you.
That's a really good question. To be honest with you, like, I don't know what we're doing. I think that, just to be honest, like, we have somebody who's measuring engagement and doing these customized pathways, but how are we doing a good job of understanding what and how these folks are being promoted? Because I'd say 80% of our workforce is work from home right now. And so we're probably missing some opportunities there. I would say that our team went from in-person recruiting to virtual recruiting with the pandemic, which was awesome. And we've got all the bulk of our team virtually recruiting from home. We have done a good job of measuring productivity remote. So that's one way. Hey, are you a productive recruiter? That's kind of the bread and butter of our business. But as far as like, hey, are you really kind of scaling up and doing everything that you need to do outside of the passport and the productivity levels? We probably can do a better job of digging in. That's a really good thought, man. I appreciate you asking that question.
Sure. Amanda, you're the coach. Tell us what we should do.
I was going to say, thank you, Neil, for pointing that out, that we have lacked that in our jobs, CEOs.
Yeah.
My thing, it's a little bit of what Seth said. I mean, everybody has, target goals, and you can, say, okay, I met this, and you can kind of check it off the mark. But for me, a lot of it is just because we are working this virtual environment. We're not seeing each other at all, if very little. And I think a lot of it is just the engagement. I mean, I think we're all burned out on Zoom, but how flexible is your team to saying like, hey, we don't actually have to look at a screen right now. So let's all go outside and go for a walk and have our conversation. I've also found it, I guess mentally in my mind, I'm thinking like if I was doing a performance review for people, I think about the things like how many people just turn their camera on and I don't have to ask them. Do you know what I mean? So it's a little bit of like, I always say like when we get on our calls, I'm like, okay, everybody has to put your camera on. Like, I don't care if you haven't showered in 2 days. I can't smell you through Zoom. Like, just turn the camera on. Because I think it's that engagement and missing out on that. And so, we've got team members who are really excited about like putting, events together and, having conversations and doing that. And that's great. And I think, it helps those people who are really enjoying working from home because they've got that, they don't necessarily like the person-to-person interaction. They can kind of hide behind the camera. But it's really, being able to identify those people and then draw them out.
Yeah. I think it's really important too that we teach people how to make sure that their work gets seen, I guess. When you're in the office, you can kind of rely a little bit on, like I said, just that energy just overflowing and people seeing that you're doing a good job. Your name comes up in meetings a lot. But a lot of times, if you're just working from home all the time and, you may have a 20-minute call once a day with somebody, like you got to be good at making sure they see the things that you're doing too, which is not a natural skill for most people. Even if it is, there's like this cultural bias that we have against, don't be a show off type things. So there's some way, I think, even in the recruiting process and the onboarding process, like try to build that culture of like, again, not crossing the line and showing off what you did, but still saying, hey, these were great things that happened this week, and I got to tell somebody about it. So yeah, I don't know how to do that.
It's almost like having at the end of the week doing a highs and lows. Like everybody's going to say like, what did we screw up on and what do we do really good at? Because I think when you have those conversations, especially from a leadership standpoint, where you say like, I totally bombed that call with a client. Like I wasn't prepared. I was off. Like it's a learning experience for your team, and to show them that you're human as well and can make mistakes. I think the other thing that's super important right now, especially for leaders like, Seth and I and you, Neil, is that we're checking in with our team. Yeah. I mean, it would be so easy for a team member to just get lost and do enough, like, check off the boxes. I'm getting my job done. But like, I think the mental aspect of it right now is so important as leaders to just check in with people and say, hey, like not calling for anything. Just want to see how you're doing. Like, how's today going?
Yeah. And Seth, I know you have like multiple levels in your company. So even checking in with some of those direct reports with you is like, hey, who's on your radar right now? Who's really doing great? Just to hear those like second, third tier folks that are coming up through the organization, like making sure you're getting those vibes and what's going on. It's good.
Yeah, it's really important. One other thing I just throw out there is we do this monthly Legos meeting where we bring everyone together to celebrate our core values. But the one thing that's cool is there's a lot of people that get notoriety because if they did something, they're on the sales team, they're in the recruiting, kind of on the front lines, and they did something good. But there's a lot of people that disappear in the background. So we do this thing called the Unsung Hero Award, and we give it out every month. And we kind of, for those that are kind of behind the scenes in the back office doing things that you wouldn't necessarily see as kind of the highlight of the organization, kind of they're in the trenches. And so I recognize that individual and kind of call them out monthly, and that's fun. So being able to do that has been something that's helpful where you're doing it all company-wide Zoom meeting with that effect.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of gave me chills. So I'm thinking like, the person who does payroll every 2 weeks.
Yes.
Nobody like everybody's like their paycheck just magically shows up and, they don't know the stress that's going on behind the scenes 3 days before hitting the button to send it all. They're like, oh my God, did I get everybody's payroll and overtime in? And, who's going to yell at me because I missed an hour of overtime,
Yeah, the payroll team gets some love with the UH award.
Yes. My dad told me early in life, when I went into corporate America, he's like, always be nice to the HR and the payroll person and get to know the janitor in the building. Because if you know those people, you'll be good.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true.
I love how you talked about your Lego meeting, and you said the one cool thing about it was this, and you didn't mention the fact that it's about Legos and you're doing Legos.
Yeah, we have we actually we build Lego houses. So
cool.
The core values, you take a Lego block, be humble, be courageous, and be a light. And if you exceed those core values, you get nominated and you get to build one piece at a time. And so we build this up, and another day, another episode.
I want an episode on all of Seth's cool things he's doing at his company. Like,
Yeah, he's always he's all over LinkedIn throwing up good stuff. Well, we're closing out here our time, so let's shift over to you guys asking each other questions. Amanda, let's start with you. Ask Seth a question you're interested in.
Oh, I knew you were going to ask me that. Let's see. I think the one thing, just because of what you're doing in your industry, where do you see as being the hardest positions to fill right now?
Oh, that's really good. That's a really good question.
I'm putting you on the spot.
So there's a ton of, I think, talent gaps right now. If you think about different verticals, whether it's like healthcare and nursing or transportation and drivers, or, in the tech space, like developers. I mean, we're on the essential frontline workforce that's taking, boxes from Amazon and putting them on your front doorstep. That is really difficult right now, especially with some of the fear of in-person work and being, around a lot of people inside a massive e-commerce warehouse where you're distributing a lot of boxes and products. Mm-hmm. So that is really difficult for us, finding somebody who wants to go to work for $15 to $20 an hour that is in a high, fast-paced environment. And it's difficult right now. We probably have 1,000 open positions to fill that we can't fill right now. And there's some good kind of macro factors that are playing against us with trying to find talent. So it's a big challenge for us. Yeah,
I can
so
imagine. Can you make more money on pay or on unemployment right now? I mean, that's always been the big concern.
And I wanted to be sensitive. I didn't want to throw that out there.
I'll throw it out,
Yeah.
so people just,
Yeah,
I get it.
you got the stimulus check, and they're definitely real big challenges for us.
Yeah.
So, Neil, can I throw my question out now?
Jump in, yeah, do it.
Okay, so Amanda, so being in a startup, over the last year, your company's a year old. What was the toughest thing founding and starting up during a pandemic? Like what comes to your mind that really was a challenge over the last 12 months? If there's plenty, but what sticks out?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest challenge is beyond, pulling from my personal network of people that I know have the skills to do it, making those decisions about, really important hires without actually just little things like sitting down and having a meal with them, because I feel like you learn a lot just from having drinks or having lunch. And so how do you have that personal connection with people and really feel like it's not a family, but it's a family. So, how do you create that family and that culture in the height of a pandemic, So I would love to, have everybody from across the United States get together and have a big meeting. And then I'm like, okay, how do I do that and not end up on, Twitter or LinkedIn or Facebook with us, sitting in a big room with no masks on, because that'll kill the business. For me, it's been, hiring outside of the bubble, and feeling good about the people that I'm bringing in.
Yes, that's really good. Good thought. Good share.
I love that one. Hey, this has been great. We talked about some good stuff. We brought up challenges that we are aware of now. But you guys are doing great work. I just want to say both you guys are really a great example of how Amanda, just to start a company in the midst of a digital world and to see what kind of things you can just start off brand new and throw off old conceptions and start. That's really inspiring. And Seth, the way you guys are transforming from more of a traditional company to a very digital one. So you guys are both doing great. Wish you both all the best. Thanks for being on the show, and we'll see you again sometime soon.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Neil.
Awesome. Nice to meet you, Amanda. Thank you,
too.
Neil. Okay. See you guys.